last a fortnight ago, when we touched on the 20th verse, Bhagavad Gita, Kinchitadhita, Ganga Jalalava Kanika Apita, Sakridapiyena Murari Samarcha, Kriyate Tasya Yamena Charcha. There was a reference to the three spiritual paths, the three spiritual disciplines, the Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, Bhakti, the path of devotion, and Karma, the path of action. There was a document shared. I believe you already should have it with you, but there's also, again, there's a link shared on the chat if you wish to have a quick access to it. You should be able to fall back on that, or you would also have it for your future reference. That we have already touched on Jnanam, just a quick overview of what we discussed. Jnanam, the path of knowledge, or the three parts we said, is primarily designed for the people who fall under three classifications. The three classifications human beings can be classified are based on the proportion of their inner personality. The inner personality constitutes of the strength of your mind and the strength of your intellect, the manas and the buddhi. So a small percentage of people have a predominance of the intellect. Intellect is more pronounced, intellect is more developed. It's the head over the heart. When such people have predominance of intellect, they are more inclined towards study, reflection, contemplation. They are analytical, they question, they're not contented with a mere proposition or a mere postulation of an unknown God. So they are inquirers into the truth. And knowledge serves as a food to these explorers into the unknown. They question the very fundamentals of the creation. They want to find out who the creator is. When people ask question, who created? Because wherever there is a creation, there has to be a creator. You see, any creation has to have the creator. So they extended that argument. The world is there out for me to see. There has to be a creator. Who is that creator? And they said, God created the world. Oh, so thank you very much. God created the world. Thank you very much. They were content with that. But a person who was inquiring, they didn't know what God is. God, again, is just an unknown term. It didn't bring any clarity to their understanding as to what is the cause of the creation. Who created it? Is there a cause? Is there a causeless cause? So there were many questions. So knowledge gave them an avenue to find the answers to that unknown. And we also said knowledge is not measured with your information quotient. It's not how well informed of the Shastras that matter. Jnanam is measured with that perception and awareness of the distinction between the real and unreal. A capacity where you're not charmed by the unreal and you're ever attuned to the changeless reality. Nitya, Anitya, Viveka Vichara. That in essence is jnanam, a perception where you're tuned to that changeless in the changing phenomenon. And the knowledge you gather, which is the information, the wisdom contained in that gives you this perception. So you'll have to extract that essence from the information. Information is just the raw material. It's of no use if you just hold on to the raw material. You gain that perception where you are not floored by the changing. Anything that subjected to change doesn't affect you. That's what he says in the verse. There is no dispute with Yama, the Lord of Death. Means death means what? Is change. Everything is being born and dead moment to moment. The night dies, the morning born, the morning dies, afternoon born, afternoon dies, evening born, evening dies, night born, night dies, morning born. It is the death, and it's the death that creates the birth. Everything in life is just a continuity. So you're not affected by the death around you. You're not affected by the change around you. Childhood dies, youthhood born, youthhood dies, manhood born, manhood dies, old age dies, childhood born. This is the process and progression, the procession of life. Everything in life is subjected to change. So the knowledge prepares you to endure the change. Yesterday we were having a satsang with some of my students from Malaysia. And there was this question. One of the students asked, Guruji, can you please explain? Life has many surprises. Life has many times challenges you. So what is the view Vedanta has got to help us handle what life throws at us? And there was an example I had shared, and that lady, actually, one of the students, she sent this message out. Now, do you all see this picture? What does it read? RPG, what does it read? I'm asking someone who's very far away from me,
Airbag.
Airbag. So my whole explanation to her, and I told her, please tweak that picture. And she wrote a little note. I'm reading it out. Learnings from yesterday's Vedanta satsang. It just come in a few minutes before. All our knowledge and experiences should be converted into wisdom to be prepared for the eventualities life throws at us. And that wisdom should serve us like airbags. Always there, protecting us from the impacts of the knocks and shocks that life throws at us. And it should happen instantly when it happens, not after the damage is done. So we can come out unshaken and remain composed always, and accept the grace that things we cannot change or are beyond our control. Gem of an explanation by Guruji. So I thanked her very much for the question, because I said, and I told her, I messaged her and said, please tweak the photograph, and said, airbags equals wisdom. Isn't it? What is this wisdom? What is this knowledge? Knowledge, or this wisdom, is nothing but something which serves you when you need it most at that moment. If it is a few seconds later, you're no more. It doesn't serve its purpose. And it is ever there and it serves you when you need it most. So Vedanta, this wisdom is nothing but a best preparation to what life throws at you. And what life throws at you is nothing but extreme, in fact, extremities of life. It is the extreme ends, the north and the south of life is what life throws at you, right? From birth to death, profit and loss, praise and censure, heat and cold, good and bad, benefactor, malefactor, rich and poor, health, ill health, joy, sorrow, good, bad, all these swings, these are the pendulums of life we are subjected to. Wisdom or this Vedantic knowledge only should be understood as an airbag. It's ever there, unseen. When you need it, it is there at that moment, not a moment later, at that moment. And you need to invest your time into that. I thought it came out very well. It was a very beautiful discussion we had on that, and I thought I should bring it up. This is what jnanam is. Not a second later, huh? It's there at that moment, at that very second, and you don't know when you are going to need it. And when it happens, it's there. It protects you. Wisdom is unseen, but it serves you. Knowledge is seen, but it will not help you. You have so much of knowledge, but it's of no use. It doesn't serve you. Wisdom is unseen, but when you need it, it's there. It serves you very well. All right, let's get back. So this was in connection to the jnanam. And did we touch upon bhakti at all? We did we? Okay. Bhakti is the path of devotion, is meant for the class of people who are predominantly emotional. It is the head less developed, the heart is more developed, it's heart over the head. Such people who are predominantly emotional, they're impulsive, they're less rational, they're less analytical. Such people need an altar, a form to pour out their emotion. They cannot attune to the formless reality. But sadly today, bhakti or devotion is largely misunderstood. All right, all of you are trying to, you're not being good students, because I have directly been reported of something that's happening which you all are not bringing to the notice of the teacher. RPG, were you there the last class?
2 weeks ago. Yes.
So when you didn't do any homework, what would the teacher have done to you?
Given you a bad grade.
No, here there are no grades. Other than grades, what would have happened?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Now, you remember there was a homework given to you all, Sriniji?
Yes, you did give us a homework.
Then how come you didn't remind me of the homework?
Because I forgot.
Now, we need to have an order of punishment here. Degree of punishment has to be.
I thought Hari should have raised that question in his WhatsApp. Now, I sincerely knew you had asked a question, but I couldn't remember what it was. I did remember.
It completely slipped my mind as well, until I'm just reminded of that there was a question asked in that context. How many of you remember that there was a question asked? Okay. Okay, Vanita Ma, what was the question, Vanita Ma?
What is the difference between blind faith and faith?
What is the difference between faith and blind faith? And it was precisely asked in this context because we said today bhakti or devotion tantamounts to mere mechanical rituals, superstitious beliefs, or blind faith. This is what is devotion today in all religions. And therefore we ask, what is the difference between having faith vis-a-vis blind faith? There's a world of difference. One serves you, another becomes a hindrance in your spiritual journey. So what's the difference between faith and blind faith? Any comments, Amaidama?
From my reading, I came to understand that blind faith is there's no logic. It's basically, it's something that just reflects your own belief. So you agree with that particular statement because it's something that you believe in. There's no real logic to it, and it's very easy to follow because of that fact. I mean, it's not difficult because there's no, your intellect is not functioning in order to understand it. It's just easy to follow. And basically you don't have to use your buddhi, to understand that. It's just blindly following it and something that has no logic.
Vis-a-vis faith?
Whereas, faith is something that has logic, but actually, there's also a statement that says where faith ends, logic begins. So I think the logic carries you to a certain point, and then after that, it's faith that takes you to self-realization or to knowledge.
All right. Interesting when you said where faith ends, where logic ends, faith begins, or where faith ends? Where logic ends, faith begins. Yes. Very true.
So you do it is logical, but at that point, one needs to have surrender to the knowledge.
Any branch.
That's what I understand.
In fact, you're very true, very right what you say. Where logic ends, faith begins. So you surrender, as you rightly said. It's not just in the spiritual field. We all surrender in areas of our ignorance in different walks of life, don't we? We go and surrender to a doctor. We go and surrender to an engineer. We surrender to a lawyer. If you have a legal concern, you go and ask the legal counsel, how do I go about this? You go and surrender to your chartered accountants. I don't know, how do I present my accounts? And I do not know. But whom do you go and surrender? It's still in your realm of ignorance. But you do not know, you don't have the knowledge. On what basis you go and choose who has knowledge? I accept my ignorance. I don't know. For example, in the spiritual field, I do not know. I have not tread this path. And yet I have to choose a guru who can guide me and have faith in that person, in an experience I know not, I have no knowledge of. And yet I got to choose. So on what basis I choose?
Based on who you think has the knowledge, someone who has the wisdom.
How do I know? I don't have the eye to see. I already said I do not know. It's an ignorant person trying to gauge or assess a person of knowledge or wisdom. Isn't it rather difficult? Because all seem to be the same from that point of ignorance. No, I'm only trying to go along with your thought that in life, you cannot embark on any journey without a basic faith or trust. The opposite of having faith or trust is you have a doubt or suspicion. You want to engage in this little transaction of this knowledge. You've got to have a basic faith that someone who is attempting to convey is doing his part, has some integrity to his work, and he's bringing something valuable, and he's doing some justice. There has to be basic trust of faith. You can't come with a suspicion. You can't come with a doubt or a malice. Then it spoils it all, isn't it? So the opposite of faith is that suspicion or doubt or malice, or what's another word for that? Literally, you start carping. You know, if you carp this teaching, you can't be a student of this knowledge. In any relationship, also in life, you've got to have the basic trust of faith. In fact, there's a beautiful saying, faith is a belief in something unknown until you come to know what you believed in. Faith is a belief in something unknown until you come to know what you believed in. And how you differentiate that with blind faith is staggering. There's a very thin line. It's a very, very thin line. But yet there is that profound assurance which Rabindranath Tagore, very poetically, he says, faith is a bird that feels the light and sings while the dawn is still dark, he says. Is a bird that feels the light and sings while the dawn is still dark. So, faith and blind faith. RPG, any inputs? What is the difference?
I've heard the example before about something very simple and mundane in our own lives, like a restaurant, right? You eat at a restaurant, and how do you have faith that the food is good, the food is clean, you won't be poisoned, right? And so, very much to your point, Guruji, it's you go to the restaurant, right? Because you see other people, others have told you about it. Similarly with this, right? So you've been led to this knowledge, probably by some acquaintance. So you've got to partake, and then you go and then you try it. And if it's to your liking, and that's a very personal thing, right? So each one of us has a different dish or a different palate for this material, right? And as that grows and grows, which is, back to what Vanita Ma said, there's that logic of, yes, it tastes good. Yes, people are going here. Yes, it looks clean. But then at some point you just have to give in that I'm not going to get ill. This is going to fill me up. It's going to provide me the energy that I need. So that's when I heard it put that way, that was a very simple, straightforward, every day. We use faith, not blind faith, but a calculated logic leads to faith, leads to appreciation in our lives every day.
Yes. A simple experience like that can tell us how you have come to a certain conclusion, a certain understanding. But many people, in fact, they said there are 3 types of students who come to a guru. And one type of student comes to check how much the guru knows, whether this fellow actually knows or not. So he's constantly comparing the teachings with his understanding of what he has heard from others, or there are some who come to show off their how much they know to the guru. So these are the pros and cons you are actually evaluating and weighing through before you actually surrender to the guru or the knowledge and say, please help me, I do not know. that there's a mental acceptance of whatever comes without challenging or without evaluating or without comparing. It's like once you're convinced, this is something which perfectly fits to my palate, you go back again and again, you perhaps talk about it, you recommend to people. But till then you're evaluating, isn't it? Very true. Very, very valid example. Any other comments? The difference between faith and blind faith. Hirenji.
Yeah, I just, it's not exactly a comment, could be a question. Say, I have faith in God. I never argue. Whether it happens good to me, I'm not saying I means it's anybody. It happens good to me or bad to me, God will take care of it. And can I call it, is my blind faith, because I'm not going to argue against or for or whatever it is, God will take care of me. So could I be calling it a blind faith because I'm blindly devoted, so devoted to God that whatever does, I'll be okay. So how do you define that exactly?
So I was not prepared for such difficult questions, sir. What is this? I come with little preparation, but then this is beyond my scope of. It's like a surgeon goes for a thing and suddenly he realizes he has to do a larger surgery. What do you do? Vaitama, please give to your husband who is almost hiding in the screen. He's almost not seen. Ain't sir? So what do you do in situation like this? Bail me out, sir. Answer cheyalo. In surgeries, how do you do if you have I know, I'm sure you are very well prepared.
No, I'm not prepared. No, you always use your experience, and whenever you have a plan A, you always think of plan B, C, D, E, and it always happens. You're always challenged. Not everything goes your way, and between success and failure is where you look at your own past experience, see how you have got out of that trouble, and use all of that. There are challenges on a day-to-day basis. But it is your experience that bails you out and what reserve knowledge that you have that takes you out of trouble. And sometimes you don't have the experience and then you seek out to other people and say, hey, how do I solve this situation? So it can
Which is what I've done. Which is what I've done now. I'm reaching out to all of you all to help me bail me out in the situation because I don't have an answer.
Is it something? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Hirenji.
Is it something I'm asking a incorrect question? Maybe I'm not sure.
No. Very sorry for that. In fact, your question is very, very apt and very, very valid. See, what you have asked, but what you have said is, I have faith in God, and if I were to accept anything life throws at me on that premise that I have faith in God, I have surrendered to God, would it tantamount to having blind faith? It would very closely border to blind faith. Because God is something unknown, isn't it? Unless until you start rationalizing it, unless you start giving it some kind of an understanding. See, emotion per se, as Vanitama initially said, the difference between faith and blind faith is emotion is where there is no rationality, there is no analysis, there's no intellect present at all. So when something is done on the mere face value of something, it tantamounts to a mere attachment or a fanaticism. Literally, it amounts to being a fanatic. But when the same thing is substantiated, it's corroborated with certain understanding, with certain experience, with certain knowledge, with a rational element in it, it becomes a sound policy. It's a sound faith. and something which has translated into an experience, it's no more faith, it's conviction.
Yeah.
See, as I've said, faith is a belief in something unknown. But once you have approached life with having a faith in a totality, see, God is an unknown term, sir. That God can be looked at up as some providence, as a totality, as a higher cause.
Yeah.
So when you surrender yourself to a larger cause and operate, as Shakespeare says, what does Shakespeare say? There is a divinity that shapes thy ends, he says. There is that divinity that comes and shapes your path, your journey, and fulfills you and protects you and paves your way. No doubt it's my little journey, but how do I allow the providence to come and enable and ennoble my journey? It's by me having faith. So once I believe in that cause, that when I work for a larger cause and the highest being the totality, everything seems to happen in my way. So there is a basic faith and a sound understanding of how the principles work. The opposite of that is when I work selfishly and self-centeredly, things don't happen my way. There seems to be a lot of hindrances. There's a lot of challenge. I'm in conflict with everything that I'm dealing with because I'm like a bull in a china shop. I'm destroying everything for my own well-being. It will not work. I have learned that through experience. So you are using your experience, your knowledge, and basic faith in the unknown of you bow down to the higher. You bring all that. You have enough evidence, as it were, to tell you that yes, there is that totality. You may call it God, you may call it Brahman, you may call it Atman, you may call it anything. There is a power. And I bow down to that with utter humility. So there is a lot of additional, rather than the mere blind fanatic belief over something, because it's just been impounded through past tradition that there is God, you got to bow down, you got to bow down. From childhood, we have been culturally pounded. So if you have been receptive and passively accepting, you become a mechanically believing something which has been told to you. So the moment you see a temple, you bow down, isn't it? So it's not a mechanical aspect or a blind element there. So when there's an injection of this knowledge and evidence through your own experience, it's no more faith, it's rather a conviction. I'm convinced that if it has worked till now, I'm certain it will work. It will guide me. So to the question, if just you say, I have faith in God without any rational element, it would lean more towards blind faith. But then you could substantiate further to translate into faith. Does it help, sir?
Sure, it does.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. So we were saying that, yes, Hariji.
Even the experience that the experience has to be supported by logic. That is how the science work. That we have different experiences even in the laboratory, and finally it has to be explained through logic. So an experience without sound logic cannot be conclusive. That is science. I have to give, I do a lot of experiments and research, and I get some result, but that result has to be logically explained and then becomes the conviction.
Fair enough. but it may not be necessary that you're able to convince anyone in this path. It may not, I may not be able to scientifically prove it to you, but yet the law works. So there's an inner conviction. It's not something you can. Is there a spiritual laboratory where you can actually experiment on it? Yet one has to go out and live these laws of life and be convinced that these laws work. It's a personal assurance we all experience in life. It is yet sound policy. I agree with you, but it's extremely subjective. It's very individualistic. All right. Yeah, Keshav Reddy garu. Sir, could you please unmute yourself, sir, please?
Hari Om Guruji.
Namaskaram. Yes, sir.
Does the logic always applies in faith? For example, you sit in a bus or you sit in an aeroplane or you sit in a train, just because your experience is that everybody is sitting, so I am sitting, and we reach the destination. You do not know who is the driver. You do not know what is his experience. And still you trust out of your experience or out of others' experience. Where does the logic applies here?
So imagine if the bus driver has had, every time he goes out, he has been having accidents. That fellow would not be having a job. Every time this pilot starts flying, he has crash landing. This fellow is not a, what do you say, contracted pilot. He is a private, once in a while emergency, they call him. So there's some kind of vicarious. So, you know, it's very unlikely you might die of a flight crash. It's very likely we might die out of a car accident. The sheer percentage. Isn't that possible? That's fact, actually. But whenever you start driving, would you start thinking that? I hope I'm making sense to you.
I mean, as far as vicarious responsibility, you do not know what is his experience, how much experience he has. And because we just trust, I mean, because of course, we trust that he must be a good driver, he must be a good pilot. There is a trust. And that trust has no, sometime I can say maybe blind trust.
As I said, it's a very thin line bordering blind and a trust.
Yes.
The opposite of trust is where you start doubting. Is this flight qualified? How many hours of flying has he got? What is his qualification? Is he sober while he's flying? I hope this fellow hasn't drunk yesterday night. You can start letting your mind run wild, and then you can have questions and no answers. On the contrary, is to have basic faith and trust in system. Now there is a system that goes through strict regulations, strict guidelines, that if this man is flying, he has to go through a certain protocol. Just like even if I have to board an aircraft, the number of checks and requirements I have to go through. If as a passenger I have to go through, what would be the certain requirements a pilot have to go through? So you have a basic faith in the system. You may not know specifically, but you have a faith in a system which you have accepted it. But if there is something which you have to take it up to question and examine, you may want to examine it. You may, if there is any doubt, you would say, no, or out of sheer experience, I don't want to distribute it. I've had many people coming and telling me over the years that, oh, I have taken an Air India flight. Oh my God, it was a horrible, I sat in a business class, but a bus seat would have been far better than in a business class of an Air India. I would any day take a Singapore Airlines, or I would take a Cathay Pacific, or I would take Emirates. Now, you've heard from people that tomorrow when you're taking a long journey, you have a choice of either booking Singapore Airlines or Air India. You would take into account, you check, what is it? Would I want to take that? Now, you may have, you could have a bitter experience with Emirates. Now, you're still formulating all these through your past experiences and knowledge. There's no way of, as I said, faith is a belief in something unknown until you come to know. But you got to start with faith. You've got to start with the premise that things should be all right. Things should be fine. Basically, you give the benefit of doubt and you start the journey.
But what exactly I mean, logic does not apply every time.
No, logically, logic alone is of no use. As I've said, even before logic kicks in, you must have faith.
Yes.
Logic only helps it to condition it, give it a proper direction and a dimension. But without logic, it becomes blind faith. It becomes fanaticism. Which today, bhakti is tantamount to a fanatic upholding of a cult or a movement or a thought. It's a fanatic thought without any basis. All right, sir. Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. No problem. Most welcome. Yes, Surinder ji.
Namaskaram, Guru Garu.
Namaskaram.
I just want to add a line or two of my perspective on what blind faith versus faith is. So the parameters and the measurements for faith are not same as 2 + 2 is 4, but there are parameters. Most of the spirituality is based on experiential level. In other words, if you want to taste rasgulla, the only way you find out is by tasting rasgulla. You cannot explain it. And the faith is like you trusting your mother. The mother has your best interest at heart, and you know that is a fundamental basis. Based on that fundamental basis, mother tells you to do something, you do it out of faith. So the same thing with the relationship with God. We have to reach an understanding that God always does something in your best interest. And so you trust God and follow faithfully. So there are different parameters is what I am trying to say. Beyond the reach of logic, faith is measured in experiential level, like taste, like smell, like touch, and like all the 5 senses. They're all experiential senses. And having faith also is an experiential sense. There has to be underlying substrate, like you pointed out, Guruji, that there has to be some basis for having that faith. And that would become a real faith. But there's no basis for it, and you believe in something, then that becomes blind, in spite of the contrary opinion. Having said that, I would like to offer a perspective as a surgeon, and it was brought up earlier on. So any number of times we face a situation where the patient under your care is desperate. You reach a desperate situation. You run out of all the techniques and ideas that you have. And we do reach that. And believe it or not, sometimes the patient still survives. On the flip side, the patient should have done well. On paper, everything looked good, should have done well. But he didn't do well. And all surgeons have experienced it. And all physicians perhaps experienced it. And therefore, physicians do not discount faith. Do not count discount. So no matter how good things look on paper, people can overcome extreme odds and do well with this element of faith. And I have experienced this and seen this any number of times. So much so, since the last class Guruji had an opportunity, an occasion to start a new heart program in a new location. So I insisted that before we do the very first surgery, that we gather and offer a prayer for all the team members who are involved. So we have to have, there is a greater power in operation beyond what we logically think should happen. There is a bigger forces out there that control the outcome beyond what you personally do. And you kind of have to accept that. And when you accept that, the faith that comes out of that is real faith. I hope I made my point helpful.
In fact, you have beautifully summarized, and your message actually resonates very well with all that we have discussed. In fact, you said there is that realm of zone of experience. Even the best of you all have no words to convey that there is this power beyond our best efforts, isn't it? So there is that divinity as we spoke about. But at the same time, if somebody rushes into the surgery, you would say, I think we'll have to wait another 35 minutes because that is the right muhurtam for surgery. Oh, I need to call the Vastu fellow and say which way I should enter the hospital, from the west wing or the south wing. I will also want to ask Anandji, would you ever have done that, or would you ever do that, Anandji? Surendraji, would you do that?
No, I would not do that. So, Muda Namakal, blind.
It's all blind faith. This is
As
the
you
difference.
pointed out, our spirituality has been replaced by so many of these things.
Infested. We are infested with such.
But underneath them all, there are some basic reasons why some of these things actually originated. And it takes people like you, Guruji, to sort it out and see where is the real logic or faith lies, and where this blind faith lies. And we are surrounded by this in all religions and cultures, not just Hinduism, not just in India. So it takes a lot of effort from people like yourselves and to sort it out. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Pleasure. Indeed a pleasure, sir. Thanks for your input. So, yes, Anandji, I'm sure you agree to what Dr. Surendraji feels.
Absolutely.
So would you go by muhurtam for surgery?
No. The surgery is scheduled as it is every single day.
But if there's a marriage occasion in the family, would you say, what is the right muhurtam? I think the pujari's time was 5 minutes late. Therefore, the muhurtam, right time, the tali was not right. Therefore, it's all affecting in the rupture in the relationship of that couple. I have had people complaining the pujari for not tying the knot at the right time. Means making that following that prescribed schedule. Is there any meaning to that? My job is to question.
I don't know why I have followed that premise myself. I don't know. But when it comes to practicality, I don't think I ever look at the Rahu column or any of those columns. But you're right. I mean, we do certain things illogically without even thinking twice about it, because that's the way we are taught, or that's the way we were told is the right way, or our blind faith, like you say.
Correct. So when we have not applied ourselves and not examined, never taken a fresh perspective to something, we tend to follow something, a path which has been laid, and follow it without logic and reason. It's not that it has to make sense, but just when you stop questioning, it ends up as blind faith. When you stop implementing this element of rationality in it, it becomes blind faith. But you and I wouldn't take as a muhurtam for a surgery. If you even do, don't tell us.
But
Yes,
isn't
Vaitama.
there science behind? Isn't there science behind the fact that there are periods of time that then why do people have horoscopes and all that if there's no science behind that or logic behind that?
I'm not sitting here in refute of anything. I'm only trying to mention, if there is, it's for you to verify it. Don't operate on blind faith. We also say the 4 a.m. is a very auspicious time. And what you attain at that hour is not replaceable at any other hour of the day. Yet we are given auspicious hour, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Why do we say that? There's a reason behind it. So I'm only bringing it to light that there is a difference, and we got to understand the difference. Isn't it? No, I'm not coming to any conclusions, please. Please don't get me wrong. Anyway, neither am I attacking or defending anything here. But what today, bhakti for a large section of people, for most of us, it just is blind faith, superstitious beliefs, mechanical rituals. This is not the beauty and grandeur of devotion. In fact, today, to extend the concept further, bhakti or prayer is to mere solicit or seek a personal favor. You go to a place of worship, when you stand in front of the Lord, in front of the altar, what are the thoughts that keep rushing in your mind? It's invariably seeking something, isn't it? Srinaji, isn't it invariably asking something in return?
Generally, absolutely correct. Yeah.
Absolutely correct. Is that what a prayer is meant for? Is it a mere transaction of asking and begging? Oh Lord, please give me that. You have given me, you have been very kind of, you've been very thoughtful of me. You have been answering my prayers, but one odd prayer has been pending for a while. Looks like you've been very busy. No, it's a festive season. I can understand, backlog of it must have got lost. Can you please attend to that pending thing? I don't mind increasing my offer to you. If you get it done, my offer from 10%, I will give 20%. It's a business transaction going on, silent transaction between you and God. Isn't it? I'm not making a mockery of it. I'm saying this is literally, people have this kind of approach to a prayer or worship. Isn't it, sir?
Yeah.
In fact, a verse in the Shastra say that. Now, before I get to that, Tota Garu, you want to say something?
Yes, Guruji. I want to say something here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, loud and clear.
All right. What I was thinking is not everything can be explained by science and logic. There's things that happen in this, in our lifetime. For example, if you have a poor man who is dreaming of getting into a big house or a house, and he has no means of getting there, but he has a strong faith or strong belief that is going to happen to him. Sometimes those things can manifest. His dreams can come true, even though logically it doesn't make any sense. that he, if you try to rationalize it, he may not have means to do that, but it can certainly manifest itself. So I'm not sure if you categorize that as a blind faith or something, a strong belief that something good is going to happen to you.
Other day we were discussing on a certain project we've embarked on. And if you ask us in terms of our bank balance, in terms of whether we have got a plan of action, whether we have got the funds to make it happen for the larger good, no. It's all there, yes, it will happen. But where there's not the words, Harishi, I told you, I have least doubt that it will not happen. It will happen. You ask me how, I don't know.
Right.
We are putting up a facility thanks to the generosity of someone, a well-wisher, a student of this knowledge who wants to take this wisdom to serve larger people. Something is being provided. And yet a lot has to be done to make it functional, operational, to make it to fructify. And I don't have, the foundation doesn't have the resources. I'm being very blunt and upright. And when you say this, I'm not worried about it. I'm not dreaming about it. Yet it's not that I want a home or a roof over my head. We want to do something good to serve you all better, serve the world better, serve humanity better. And yet there's a sound conviction that it will happen. Undoubtedly it will happen. You may call it blind faith, or you may call it a conviction in the journey you have undertaken, and the experience how when you work for a higher cause, it all will happen. When you work with the spirit of sacrifice, it's a divine work. Divinity will find its own ways and means to advance it. It's nothing. The least I could do is I am just a mere instrument in that cause. And if you function that way, it'll happen. So if one works with that spirit, you have, and you can't prove it in a laboratory. You can't put it as Dr. Surendraji very well said. It's experience based, it's subjective based. And these masters are trying to convey that conviction to us, to experience it, to have a certain amount of faith in that, experience that. You're very true, sir. It will happen. Undeniably, it will happen. Right. Hariji?
Hari Om, Guruji.
Yes, sir. Hari Om.
Guruji, very little to add. You completely nailed it. I think the essential thing is that we do not renounce our duty, our part of the whole deal, our actions. So you continue to act and do your best. And that is where faith or something steps in. You don't just say, God will take care of it, so let me relax. So I think the difference between faith and blind faith is that you do your best, you act and do your best, and you act based on logic, based on your experience, based on what others have told you when you have referred to them or whatever, but you don't stop acting. That is, I think, the essential difference, right? That the surrender is to the faith after you have done your best. That is really humility.
Correct. You brought out another important element, that is when you don't do your dharma and you believe the totality alone will take care of it, it is nothing but being tamas. It's inactive, it's lethargy, it's indolence. But when you start acting and start arrogating everything to yourself, is rajas. Sattva is to perform your action, to do your dharma, to do your part, surrendering to a larger cause. That is what faith or bhakti or devotion is. You've surrendered your little ego to a larger cause. That is bhakti. So that's the difference, you rightly said, between tamas and sattva. So coming to the point which I mentioned, prayer is not an avenue to seek something, to ask something. Rather, prayer is an avenue of being thankful, of being grateful for what you've already been provided. In fact, bhakti or devotion is nothing but an awareness, an acute awareness of the blessings of the boundless benefaction. Devotion is an avenue, bhakti or prayer is an avenue where you thank the Lord for what has already been provided to you, rather than abusing it to ask for more. So when you go to the Lord and say Namaskaram, your mind should be actually be blank. There is no more wants. You are saturated with your needs. There's nothing I want anymore. I only want to go to the Lord just to thank for everything that's happened. There's nothing more I need. In fact, you become helpless. You don't know what to ask because you've got so much. You're already given so much. What more do I want? It's a state. Prayer is an expression arising out of your contentment, out of your satisfaction, out of your thankfulness and gratefulness for what you already received. But when you don't realize it, you would go about abusing prayer and worship to merely ask for more. And there's a verse in the Gita which says, Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukrutino arjuna artho jignya surartharti jnani cha bharatarshava. Or Rishabha or Arjuna, there are 4 types of seekers. One who comes to seek mere material benefits. They want something in material return. Some want physical comfort. Oh, my husband is not well. He needs your blessings, Lord. Please ensure the surgery goes well. Everything happens well for him. So you go to prayer for something physical in return for your near and dear. Or you want some material benefit, or you want emotional solace, or you are seeking jignyasa, mere curiosity. So when you use prayer to satisfy either your material, physical, emotional, intellectual, he says, you are not my devotee. And there is the last category, he says, there are these type of people who come to me to seek me. They don't come to me to seek anything from me. And such a person is my devotee. You all have to ask yourself, am I seeking the Lord or am I seeking something from the Lord for myself? The moment you seek, it is no more prayer. It is no more worship. It is beggary, mockery of bhakti or devotion. It's the true concept of bhakti is distorted. It's very, very distorted. Sadly so. Not many are there who are trying to inject this awareness. Anandji, are you trying to say something? Sundarji, also, I'll come to you, sir. Just a minute. Anandji, are you trying to have something to say?
I have a question. What happens when you go to a temple and are not asking for anything?
That's what he said.
When does that occur?
Could you come again, please?
What happens when you just go to a temple and are not asking anything in return? And when does that actually happen?
When it happens is when you are extremely thankful. You want no more. It's like when you had your full. and somebody is still offering you another helping of the dessert, or you're being served, what do you say? I've had enough, ma. Thank you very much. I'm really full. I can't have it anymore. Thank you very much. It is a state of your fullness, saturation. You don't want anymore. It is exactly a spiritual fullness. And that happens when you're spiritually elevated. Your material, your selfish needs are no more. You've risen above yourself. So spiritual awakening is an awareness that I have enough. And in fact, only when you have bhakti, that is when you do karma. Service or seva or service and sacrifice, you live a life of service and sacrifice only when you realize I have taken far more than what I have given back. That is when you want to give back to the society. You want to give back. You find ways and means how you can serve and sacrifice. Or you can continue to acquire and aggrandize for your own well-being. So that spiritual awakening that I've been receiving so much, I must learn to be thankful. So even as a son, I can be aware of all what my parents have done for my well-being. And the moment I realize what they have sacrificed for my well-being, rather than complaining and asking for more, I will learn to be thankful and grateful to them. Isn't it, sir? The same emotion of thankfulness comes in, isn't it? In fact, there is no difference between the emotion of love and devotion, sir. Love and devotion are the same emotion, which is nothing but a feeling of identification. I repeat, love and devotion are the same emotion, an emotion of identification. When your feelings are flowing towards something on par to you or below than you, you say you love them. You say you love your spouse, you love your children, you love your home, you love your car, you love your friends, on par, below you. But the same feeling of identification, when it's above you, you say, I'm devoted to my parents, I'm devoted to my work, I'm devoted to this knowledge, I'm devoted to my guru, I'm devoted to God. The same feeling when it goes something beyond you, it is devotion. It's the same identification. It's a feeling what I have. I can complain what my parents have not done or be thankful what they have done. I can ask the God for more and more and feeling something is amiss in my life, or just hold back and just look back at my life and say, I'm thankful for what I have. I'm grateful. It's just an awareness. So that state of no wanting is a sign of spiritual evolution. A true seeker will not ask. And it is all relative. Nothing is absolute, isn't it? So to the extent you have that feeling, to that extent, no more. Thank you. That kind of a feeling comes in, sir. I hope it has answered your question, sir.
Yes, thank you.
It is an experience we all feel when we are in this journey. A state we all are in at some stage. And once you reach the stage, it's not that it comes at certain stage. It's an evolution. As you evolve with understanding, it dawns on us that prayer is not an avenue to ask for more. Prayer is an avenue, is a one long chant of thanking the Lord. That's about all. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay. We'll take one more comment from Surendra ji and then we'll have to wrap it up. Yes, Surendra Garu.
Pranams again, Guruji. I just
Yes,
wanted to bring up one point here today. In America is observed as Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday is observed in all of the Christian world.
Yes.
But what exactly happened in Easter Sunday is very relevant to the present discussion. So on Easter Sunday, Lord Jesus is taken down from the cross and was buried, and he then resurrected. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is observed as Easter Sunday. So I was reflecting on what the resurrection of Jesus Christ actually means. It's actually Eastern philosophy, Hindu philosophy. The way to understand perhaps in the present context is when Lord Jesus was in physical form, he was limited to his height and weight and appearance and etc., etc. But when he resurrected, he is no longer limited to the physical self. He's everywhere and he's in anything and everything. Just like Lord Krishna showed his Vishwarupa Darshanam any number of times, and to Arjuna and everybody else. He showed during Vishwarupa Darshana that he's everywhere and everything. So that is similar, although not very well understood and explained that way. The way I understood is exactly that. And why is it relevant to the discussion? Once you know that there is such a force that is in everything and anything, simple knowledge of that is Gnana Yoga. To understand that is the force that is permeating everything and anything is Gnana Yoga. And to be devoted and loving and pay respectful of that force is bhakti and love, as you pointed out. And then take the next step further to do your duty as ordained by your own physical abilities, knowledge, education, and capabilities and circumstances. Doing what you're supposed to do without expecting the fruit of it, without thinking you're the one actually doing it, is karma yoga. So I've done some homework on the what was posted on the WhatsApp, and these are all linked to one of the other. As I look at the 30 plus qualities of good Gnana Yogi, and 30 plus qualities of karma yoga, and 30 plus qualities of devotee, they are very parallel, superimposed, and similar. It's very hard to separate them. You cannot be a good karma yogi without being a good bhakti yoga. You cannot be a good karma yogi without having the gnana that you are not the doer of the things. Otherwise, you'll only simply accumulate karma and you're going to be reborn. If you want to convert karma into karma yoga, you have to have the gnana. And you also have to have the devotion and love, as you just explained, Guruji, to the greater creation around us. Thank you, Sam.
Yes. Yes, again, very well said. And you have actually created the path or the platform for the next session, which is how bhakti leads you into karma, and then essentially how all the three are integrated, all the three are interdependent. Nothing is standing alone or exclusive. Jnanam alone is detrimental, bhakti alone is detrimental, karma alone is detrimental. It becomes an obstacle. Detrimental is an obstacle. So one compensates the other. To know more, I'll see you all next week. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om.